Good afternoon. I'm Ramon Shiloh. I am here today at Indigenous Food Lab. Honored to be here. Also excited to really kind of show a little bit about why I'm here and what I'm cooking. Today I'm preparing a coffee rubbed bison tongue. This dish amplifies a lot about Leonard Peltier, whom I was planning on actually cooking for this month. And so I want to talk a little bit more about that in depth, but I want to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm here today. I'm an award-winning author, illustrator, multicultural chef, and advocate for Indigenous youth based in Portland, Oregon. My work blends storytelling, art, and food to promote cultural identity and empowerment in Native communities. In 2018, I presented a chef's table at the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian, so that was such a beautiful experience. But recently I was invited to cook for Leonard Peltier. It was a private dinner for him and his family, which was an honor I never expected. This healing meal was meant to reflect his profound journey, as well as the new path that he now begins after nearly 50 years of incarceration. Each dish was crafted to embody his resilience, understanding, and the lessons carried forward through generations. I pray that the meal that we prepare brings not only nourishment, but true healing. It will be made with gratitude and with hope that every bite offers comfort and strength to those who receive it. The bison tongue is the heart of this dish, so I wanted it to represent that it was his voice that was taken through incarceration. And so once a speaker of his people, I felt that he was silenced and cut off from the world. And so I wanted this dish to amplify that although he was left to sit in confinement with his thoughts, I also felt that the tongue, tender and the way it's going to be braised, holds a lot of weight in that silence. And so that is primarily why I wanted to share this dish with him, but also share it with you as well. So before we get into the nitty-gritty on this dish in particular, I wanted to express and explain each ingredient that you're looking at with care. This rub symbolizes two stories: the bitterness of waking up every morning to prison coffee and the sacred fire of native spices that carries its survival. Each layer of flavor reminds us that even in bitterness, there is resistance. What you see in front of you here is smoked red chili powder. The red chili mirrors the heat of endurance, the anger at injustice, and the passion that kept Leonard's hope alive behind cold walls. The onions and garlic are humbled healers, pungent, strong, grounding. They represent the unseen caretakers, those who have kept Leonard's name alive through decades of advocacy and prayer. The ancho chilies to me are very ceremonial, torn by the hand as tradition teaches, releasing their spirit into the pot. They honor the ceremonies Leonard could not attend, but carries within him. The tomato paste that you're looking at is a spoonful of tomato paste that deepens the broth, symbolizing the blood ties to land, to the family, and to his culture. Ties that even bars could not break. We also have black coffee here. It's a braising liquid. I wanted it to symbolize that, we return to coffee, brewed strong. It becomes the bath in which tongue transforms. Just as Leonard did over the years, he transformed his pain into wisdom. We also have these Tepary beans right in front of us. They tell a story of ancient survival. They are a living testament to the endurance of indigenous cultures. It's resilient, it's nourishing, it's unbroken. We also have wild rice here. It is the sacred grain of the North, a gift from prophecy, a food migration, and hope. It carries the breath of our waterways, the teachings of our elders, the footsteps of our ancestors. And so I wanted to really make sure that all of these flavors and of course the components that go with the dish itself is handled with care, so that we all have an understanding of what goes into this dish and how we also accept it in our bodies. Of course, what's not on this table that I will show throughout the process of this dish is the squash puree that I'll be putting together. The squash brings sweetness and comfort. It's a sweet reminder that even after long winters, there's warmth behind it. It represents home. It's the taste of being cared for after too long in the cold. I'm also going to be making a choke cherry bison gravy. The choke cherry is bittersweet to me, just like Leonard's story. The gravy holds ceremony and grief, richness and regret, but also the strength to keep going. And so I wanted to make sure that the bison gravy, like the way bison migrates, it spreads its life outwardly so that we can receive it in a good way. The wild blueberries to me is a tiny but powerful understanding that with each berry, it's a bead of memory. It's sweet, it's tart, it's alive. It's stitched into the story like a living prayer tie. And I wanted to finish it with herbs and fir tips and edible flowers that represents our prayer of life. It's a return to the natural world. It's a blessing for Leonard and for all of us who carries the seeds of justice in our hands. So we're gonna start today on making our bison stock. Right here we have some beautiful bones. It has this really this beautiful bone marrow, and that's going to bring a lot of richness to this dish. The whole point of this particular stock is that it's going to bring a lot of depth within our beans, as well as the braising that we're going to have within the bison tongue as well. And so I want to have it in two parts. One's going to be for the braising. The other part of this stock is going to be for the beans. I want to fortify it with a little bit of salt because in the roasting process, I want some of the salt to come through so that I don't have to add too much to the stock itself. So now I'm going to be adding pepper. Now with these bones, I have preheated the oven to 425 degrees. And it's gonna roast until it's completed. It's gonna get really brown, and it's gonna really kind of bring all of that marrow out, leach out through the bone into the stock, which will complete the journey of our bison stock. So I just put the bones in the oven for our stock. And so next on our list is the bison tongue. Now, this is a beautiful piece that came to us from the Wawami team, and I'm just honored that they provided this ingredient for me so I can bring this to you. This dish in particular, especially the way that this is laid out, it has a really hard piece of muscle around it, which is our tongue that has a lot of texture on it. And so what we want to do is we want to fortify it with a lot of seasonings, and then we're going to sear them off. And we're going to make sure that all of those flavors that are from those seasonings are locked into the flesh of this tongue. But first, I'd like to clean it, be mindful of all the areas of the tongue so that you hit all the areas and make sure that, you inspect all the tissues so that, you don't find any surprises. Because this is wild game, it comes with a lot of wild elements. So let's wash it and I'll be right back. So on this platter, I wanted to make sure that the bison tongue was being represented properly. And so this was sage that I gathered in Montana, and it was a way to bring a little bit of good energy and good medicine to this dish. We do not cook sage with our food. Sage is more of a ceremonial property. I was always told with sage that when you burn it, you smudge for a lot of different reasons. So when I smudge with sage, I smudge with protecting my eyes so that I can only see clear things. I smudge my nose so that I can also breathe in good things. When I smudge my mouth, I smudge it so I can only say good things. These are the teachings of what I was told. And so the sacred behaviors behind sage to me represents the aspect of protecting our people through prayer. I wanted to bring a purposeful meaning behind everything that I do. And so having sage sit next to this beautiful bison tongue, it's appropriate for where we're at with our food. Okay, here we have our seasonings. It's about approximately for this tongue, I would say about 3 tablespoons of the ancho pepper. This is smoked paprika. It's all approximately 3 tablespoons each. We also have the maple sugar that we're going to use for this. We have our onion powder. Break that up. Somebody told me or asked how much did this bison tongue weigh, and I think it's about 5 pounds. By the way, that was cinnamon. We have a little bit of clove, and I'm going to apply the ground coffee to this. It's going to really bring so much flavor to this dish. This is about 1.5 cups. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we rub the whole tongue, get into all those little spaces. I like to add a little bit of oil to the bison tongue, but since I already managed to clean it with water, it still has a lot of moisture where it will still hold all of the seasonings in place. You're gonna let this sit in the refrigerator for about 1 hour, and then take it out and then pat it down, because a lot of the moisture from the sugar and the salt as well. Forgot about that, but I'm going to do that right now. It's really going to bring a lot of that flavor in and out of the tongue. And by the way, with the leftover seasonings that is on this pan, it doesn't go wasted. It's going to be part of the stock as well. So I'm going to now take this into the walk-in so it sits for about 1 hour before searing. I want to prepare the side dishes that will be beautiful complement to the bison tongue. And we have from Ramona Farms 3 different types of Tepary beans. These are drought resistant. These are amazing beans. It's Arizona grown. And so as you can see, it's a mixture of 3 beans in water. I salted the water a little bit so that there's flavor within the beans. I'd like to chop some onions into the water so that it brings a little bit more flavor to the water. It would also offset any of the flavors that come from the salt. And I also want to crush some garlic and make sure that that gets into the water as well. We're going to chop these, throw it in the water. You don't have to make it perfect. We're not trying to mince it. It's just a rough chop that will go in the water, because through when it boils, all I want is a little bit of flavor. So what I'd like to do is bring this to a boil, and once it's there, I'm going to put the beans inside, and we're going to have that cooked until done. So now that the water is boiling, we have our soaked beans, which has been soaking overnight. This should feed about 6 to 7 people. We're putting it into the water. Get that moving around. So I would say let about 30 minutes go by. Because of the fact that it's soaked overnight and they're very, very small beans, it shouldn't take long for it to get tender. As we're working on the beans, we have also water here for our wild rice. And so we're gonna get that going. What you wanna do is you wanna get your wild rice in the water. Stir that around. This is rice that was gathered here in Minnesota. And I'm really honored to use this particular rice. Everything that I have bumped into is so mindful as far as what products are being used for the particular dishes that they're creating here at this lab. But to come here and know that we have a market that is plentiful and abundant in all the things that we want on our table, these are the medicines you need in your body. So now that the beans and the wild rice are working, they're getting really aggressive. So I'm going to cover this so that, it keeps doing what it's doing, but it's also going to be taking its time. In the meantime, we have Kabocha squash. This particular squash, it has a very hard outer shell. Its flesh is really beautiful. Inside it's a very soft flesh, very smooth, very silky, especially when it comes to pureeing. I'm gonna dig in off from the center itself, and you go down, and you just go, and you pull it down to where you're only going halfway. Pull the knife out and go the other direction of that cut. And so you wanna start on the other side and go down until you hit the ground. Isn't that pretty? This is a healthy squash. It's got a lot of layers that identifies its health. All of these little fibers really tell a story. So I want to make sure that, when you're working with a good product, that you have a relationship with it as well. So what I like to do is just make sure that the insides are taken out. It's very easy to kind of get in there and also clean it out because it has this little vessel that allows you to kind of go in there easily and take everything out that you need. Try not to throw anything away. You could painstakingly take each seed out and dry them out, salt them, and eat them. I have eaten these seeds for a long time, and I usually save them. I also use these seeds for, your garden, growing them, and making sure that you have these all year round. I've also have grounded it up, dried it out completely, salt them, season them, and then have them as a powder. And so I've used this to also have as a texture for cereals. I've also used it for dishes like bread. If you want that added texture, put it in your dough, and then you can have good baked breads with these type of flavors that go into it. Okay, coming out are the bones, bison bones. Just came out of the oven. I gave it about 35 minutes in roasting, and so as you can see, the marrow is really coming through. And this is going to give us the ability to get a really healthy, rich bison stock out of the process. So yeah, these look really good. This meal is going to taste very good. So now that we took the bison bones out of the oven, I'm going to let that sit for about 15 minutes before we go to our next step. In the meantime, I'm going to add a few seasonings to this squash. And so I want to hit it with a little bit of salt. We're also going to do a little bit of maple syrup, just a little. And to give it a little bit of depth, I'm basically peppering it with a little bit of coffee just to bring some of that flavor through. Using a little bit of maple syrup is going to get me the sweet that I want, because when it comes to the beans and it comes to the bison tongue and the wild rice, there's no sweetness in that. It'll just counteract and basically complement all three side dishes. I'm going to go to the oven. I'm going to put it in there. I'd say about 35 minutes until done. And so here we are with these ingredients that will be in the stock itself. We have our mirepoix, which is our celery, our white onion, our carrots. I have a little bit of garlic and thyme, which we are going to put in this pot. We're gonna, caramelize it, get some flavors going so that it's gonna bring out all those flavors into the meat. For the caramelization of these ingredients, we're gonna use Bison tallow. I love this product. We use it here at Indigenous Food Lab. It's a premium cooking oil. I suggest this more than anything. Tallow is, it's just rendered fat, but also it's good for your skin. It's good for other products around, maybe hide, leather products that you use for whatever, hunting or just wearing. It has a lot of multi-uses just in tallow alone. For today, we're gonna be cooking with it. So we're going to start with about 4 tablespoons of tallow. Get that working. I'm going to take each ingredient. I'm going to bring some of that thyme. I also have some of that leftover seasoning that we seasoned the bison tongue with that I'm going to sprinkle in here just to bring out more flavor into this dish. We want to get this basically down to a level where it's translucent in color. The aromatics of this is really beautiful, as you can see. I'm gonna throw in a little bit more. I wanna get this really seasoned in because once we actually use the stock, it's gonna mellow the flavors, but as we're kind of moving this around, the next stage is going to be the tomato paste that I'm going to use to really bring in that sweetness and also that acidity. As the tomato paste is working with the vegetables, I have this on high. So you really want to get kind of like a char on the tomato paste. You want to cook it through, but you kind of want to brown it a little bit too, because what's going to happen is all of that concentrated flavor in the paste is going to stick to the pan. And this is what you want. You want to make sure that the pan grabs a lot of that flavor, and you want to get a little crust down below, because once I deglaze it with vegetable stock and the coffee, it's really going to pull out a lot more concentrated flavors from the bottom of that pan. So now that we're at a point where it's getting really, really dark, it's almost, I wouldn't say it's close to being burnt, but it's really, really dark. I'm going to deglaze it with a little bit of like vegetable stock. And what I'm doing is I'm pulling a lot of that flavor off of the pan from the bottom. And as I make a little bit more adjustments on more stock, I'm allowing it to work all those flavors through. I want to get a good balance. So it's almost like a slurry that I want, but I'm gonna probably add about 10 cups to where I'm satisfied with the flavors that I'm moving around. So we're gonna put more stock. So as you can see, I shifted out the beans to another location so that I can have you see a little bit more of what I'm working with on camera. I have made a beautiful braising liquid. I haven't added the coffee yet. Also in this process, I wanted to add a little bit of the juniper berries that are also going to bring out the flavor of the stock. Juniper berries are just so good for bison. I'm going to add a little bit of neutral water to this, and I'm going to let this boil before I put in the coffee. I'm going to put in more cinnamon sticks. I'm putting in more bay leaf and more whole garlic. I don't want to crush them. I just want them to move around. I want to add a lot of like energy to this. It seems like there's a lot of components in it, but it's going to really bring out the richness of this stock. In the meantime, I have ancho chili pods. Now these came dried, obviously, but I threw it in the oven at 250 degrees for 10 minutes. And so it dried out it completely to where it basically sounds like chips. And it was specific for the grinding that I want to do. And so what you want to do is grind this beautiful ancho chili. This is a beautiful molcajete that I'm using right now, where I'm able to grind the ancho chili for the stock that I'm preparing. And that goes in, bring more flavors, more dimension to this stock. And the flavors are very wild. It's so beautiful. I smell coffee. I smell a lot of sweetness from those juniper berries. I also smell the clove, the cinnamon, the onion powder, the garlic powder. It all has like a beautiful dance to it. And here I have about approximately 7 shots of espresso. I'm gonna go halfway, and this is where I'm going to allow myself to taste the stock once it boils. I'm gonna let it simmer a little bit, and then I'm gonna taste it to kind of get a grab on how much more coffee espresso I wanna add to this stock. I wanna make sure that I have all the flavors I need out of the stock first before I put in the bones, because these are all like, intricate steps. Yes, you can throw everything all in one, but what you're doing to the dish is a disservice because of the fact that you're not allowing every element to speak for itself. Be patient. Being patient is part of the process. Okay, I just tasted the stock. What I'm tasting is a lot of notes of coffee. It's right on the tongue. I feel like it needs to be a little bit stronger. I'm going to reserve some of this coffee for other things. Some maple sugar, approximately 2 tablespoons. That allows it to also work well with the savory flavors that are also a part of this dish. The marrow and everything that is in that bone will give it another dimension of flavor. And so this is our time now to drop the bones. Okay, I'm going to drop in some more water. I want to have this simmered slow and low for 4 to 6 hours. I feel like this is going to be a dish to remember. Before we get into squash puree, I just want to let you know that this was slightly overcooked, but mistakes happen. I don't want to waste food, and I know that everything that I put into every ingredient comes with a good intention, and so therefore I'm going to make the best of what I got. Yes, it might be a little over crispy, but the way I'm going to process this, it's going to soften up, and it's going to give the puree that I want. The ingredient itself is saying, yeah, dude, thanks for the neglect, huh? But in hindsight, I'm going to try to gain its respect. It's not a Band-Aid. It's more on a recovery, right? I want to make sure that this is more than putting a Band-Aid on top of something that I could have said, I'm just throwing you away. And that's just never been my message. When you put good intentions into things and it comes out where there's mistakes involved, you have to accept that. Not everything is perfect. So as I'm picking this apart, I'm thinking there's going to be a little bit more liquid involved because it came out really dry, which is okay. Squash is very resilient. It has a lot of different ways of interpreting what it wants to be and what it wants to become. To all you home cooks out there, if you ever have a mistake, don't throw it away. Let it sit there. Think about what you want to do. Just know that eventually it's going to work in your favor if you commit to it. Okay, so the process of the puree is putting the squash in this Vitamix In this, I'm also adding a couple tablespoons of maple syrup. I'm adding a little bit of water just to soften it up. I'm gonna hit a little bit of coffee grounds. Have ground maple sugar, a little bit of salt. And we have this wonderful alternative from butter. It's ghee. It's such a really rich flavor. It'll give us a little thickener, but also it basically gives it its smoothness. Oh, dude, that came out nice. What did I just say? This is this beautiful. You take a mistake of dry squash, add a few little ingredients, and it comes out perfect. This is the puree I've been looking for. The flavor is amazing. That squash heard my blessings, and it didn't want to let me down. So I was very happy that what I got was what I envisioned. The squash really comes through very well. Even though that it was slightly overcooked, it was also protected by the armor of its skin. So therefore it didn't lose or disrupt the flavor of the flesh. All right, as I'm looking at the bones in this stock, I'm noticing how the bone marrow has completely dislodged from the bone itself, and it's made its way into the stock, which is what we want. Oh, and there's some where you can kind of force it down and get that marrow out of it. That's all good gelatinous flavor that was also trapped. Therefore, all the seasonings that I also created and made for this dish seeped into that marrow, and it came through beautifully. This is all good stuff. This is gonna turn out to be one of the best dishes I've ever created. Leonard would be proud, and he will be, because I will be making this for him on a later date. And, you know, we'll have a lot to talk about. Now that we have the bones out, we are going to strain it through a chinois or a china cap. So we're going to transfer that into this Cambro. We're going to let all the flavors go through there. And the flavors are so wonderful. As I'm smelling this, the aromatics in this is just amazing. The bay leaf, the cinnamon sticks, I'm smelling coffee. This is exactly what will come through into the bison tongue as well. So what you want to do is, while this process is done, I'm going to bring that back to a boil, and I'm going to add more water to this. And this is going to set the stage for our bison tongue. I filled it up with about maybe 4 more quarts of water. And what I want to do is now add a little bit more of the seasoning to the stock, just because the dilution of the water is going to bring down the flavors a little bit. And so I want to bring that back to life. Coffee grounds, the rest of the espresso, more of the seasoning that came off of the bison itself. I'm going to top it with a little bit of maple sugar. As you can see a smoky rondo. It has bison tallow. I'm going to be searing the bison tongue in that, and I really want it to get that crust on the tongue. And so here we are. Moment of truth. The nitty gritty that I was talking about earlier. It's time to get real. This is an honor to utilize this bison tongue in this way. And it's fully encrusted in the seasonings that we chose for this dish. And what you want to do is lay it in there slowly and let it sit. until all sides are done. By the way, this is a bison tongue, so it's got a lot of tissue around that still has a lot of moisture in it. You know, there's a lot of pores in the tongue. And so, you know, it's gonna pop, especially if you have oil in here. And so what you wanna do is be very careful. You wanna press a little bit, because this is a lean meat. If you do this at home, you better have the windows open, maybe your sliding glass door, or heck, just open up the roof, you know? You know, about 1.5 minutes on each side, just so it really traps all those flavors into the flesh. Man, the smell of this is so beautiful. Very happy that Indigenous Food Lab came with the delivery of this beautiful tongue. Now we're gonna go on the other side to complete the searing. We're gonna transfer this bison tongue into a 4-inch hotel pan. Okay, final turn. Yeah, we're not trying to fully cook it through. This is just a searing on each side before we transfer it for the final destination. So now I'm gonna transfer it. I'm gonna lay this down. Because of the fact that it's a tongue, I wanna keep this upright as we complete the journey of bison tongue. Remember, it's coffee rubbed with a lot of seasonings that really brought a lot of flavor into the meat itself. It's seared on all sides. And because of the 4-inch hotel pan, I wanted to lay it down instead of, you know, having it up there, because what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna put foil over it, and then I'm gonna have it in the oven for approximately about 3 hours. The bison stock came out perfect. It has all the flavors that I want. That will also resonate well in the final stage of this braising. After it's done in 3.5 hours, approximately, I will let the bison tongue sit and chill for about a couple hours in the walk-in. After I take it out, I'm going to take the outer skin off. Now, the bison tongue, as you can see, it's a very tough piece of meat. And so what you want to do is you want to clean it, and by the cooling, it'll actually start to fall and peel off easily. And in the braising process, I want to cover this, get enough liquid in there so that it's going to absorb all those flavors. But once it's chilled, after the braising process is done, it holds the integrity of the tongue in place because that outer skin is still holding it together. Just wanted to say thank you very much for watching me turn this into something that Leonard would be very proud of. Tomorrow, I want you to tune in on day 2 on the completion of the bison tongue, as well as creating the choke cherry gravy that will be part of this dish. See you tomorrow. This is day 2, and we have the coffee rubbed bison tongue in the oven. That will be coming out at noon, so we have about a couple more hours. It's a 4.5 hour process, and so it's in there working. Where we left off is going right into the choke cherry gravy. This gravy is definitely going to be a complement to the dish because it's got a lot of sweetness and a little bit of bitterness to it as well. I have ghee, which is going to be a thickener to this gravy. These are simple little ingredients. It's going to be ghee, the bison stock, and also the choke cherry preserves. So let's start with the gravy. I'm gonna turn this down a bit. I wanna add a little bit of the stock in there first. You get that going. I'm toning down the heat on this with the stock before I add the ghee. You wanna like take it off the heat and let it just work in. And it will thicken on its own, but make sure that when you take it off the heat, it's still cooking. And what I wanna do is once I get this to a thickening state where I'm comfortable with it, I'm going to put in the preserves. So you wanna start off with, getting the temperature up, throw in the stock, throw in the ghee, bring it back to the heat, put it on low. You wanna apply the preserves slowly into the sauce. It's also best to use a whisk. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more at a time. And because of the ghee and the stock has already done its job, it's gotten a little thick, you wanna just completely get your preserves in there slowly. And then once you get the preserves working entirely into the stock and the ghee, you wanna let it simmer a little bit, but it's kind of doing a little slow cook on its own so it thickens and everything is incorporated properly. And you wanna continue whisking until those preserves are liquefied. Okay, well, while this is working, I have about 20 more minutes before it's complete. I'm going to get all of the other ingredients together, warm them up for plating in the final stage. The way to kind of tell it's done is, when the syrup sticks to the spoon, that is the consistency that you would want. The smell is just beautiful. It just, everything locks together really well. Especially incorporating the bison stock with this beautiful choke cherry preserve. All right, well, here we are. I just walked this out of the oven, and here we have the revealing portion of the show. This was approximately 3.5, 4 hours. As you can see, through the roasting process, the tongue has revealed some blisters in it. And you can see that right around here, it's kind of like coiled a bit so that it'll be easier to peel off when it's slightly cool. All right, so I'm going to transfer this beautiful bison tongue into the space. What I want to do is now strain the bison stock because I want to incorporate some of that flavor into my beans and my wild rice. Now that I have the liquid in place, a little bit in the wild rice. I'll bring some of that into the beans. Look at that puree. Look at that soft color. I'm gonna now process this and take the skin off the outer layer. As you can see, it's very tender. You wanna make sure that it's slightly cooled, but warm enough so that it can peel off naturally. After 3.5, 4 hours, it's been able to come off beautifully. As you can see, it's a little blistered, and that's a good sign. What we're going to do is after I peel off all the skin, I'm gonna cut them in medallions, and then I'm gonna re-cook them. I'm gonna re-sear it. But as you can see, it comes off pretty easily. Now that I've skinned the bison tongue, we're gonna cut these in medallions, and then I'm gonna sear that off, and then we're gonna plate. All right, I was ready to start slicing medallions and then searing them off until I was approached by a guest of mine who came all the way from North Dakota to provide me additional ingredients that goes with this dish. I'm so proud and honored to invite him into the fold so that we can have a more in-depth conversation about this one particular ingredient that he brought with him, and also how that's going to incorporate to the story of Leonard Peltier's life as a whole. His name is Luke Black Elk. And Luke, come on in.
Hey, Chef.
Hey, thank you so much for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Can you tell us a little story about not only the ingredients that you brought, but also you fashioned this beautiful basket that I will be plating with. And so can you tell me a little story about those ingredients?
So this is allium textile, C and Lakota. I'm afraid I don't know the Anishinaabe word for it, but so this is a super important onion from the prairie. This would have been all over North Dakota, South Dakota. This is the plant that people, the onion that people would eat there, right? This is also a traditional method of preserving this. So we take and we crush the whole onion, the green and the bulb together, and then fashion a patty out of it and let it dry. And then it's a all year seasoning, right?
Yeah. Such a versatile, little, ingredient, but yet it packs so much nutrients in it as well, huh?
Vitamins, medicine. I mean, this is a medicine that's been used all across the world, right? In different forms. Yeah. And it's one of our close plant allies, right? Opens up the lungs for breathing, opens up the sinuses.
Yeah. What's the preferred method of cooking?
Right now, because it's fresh, sautéing it or just wilting it, roasting it right over coals. Yeah. Just getting a little bit of char on it. Okay. Is really a great way to bring out that flavor. Yeah. For long term is preserving it. Yeah. Drying it and preserving it, and then you have it all year long. You can just rehydrate that in a little bit of water, put it in some soup, whatever you need to.
I love that. So I'll be plating it in your beautiful basket that you created here. Can you tell us a little bit about the basket itself?
So this is a birch bark dish. And so this is actually a traditional way for Anishinaabe people, but Dakota and Lakota people to serve food. When you actually take the bark off of the birch, you do it in such a way that you're not really harming the tree, and so you're taking the bark, the outer skin, and you're leaving the plant, and then you let it go, and you don't take from that plant again. And so this would have been like a dish that would have been used to get maple sap in the spring. Oh yeah. But you also serve food in it. This is a way a lot of indigenous people we're eating like family style. So it'd be like a platter of wild rice and a platter of corn and a platter of meat. And this is a dish that would be there for people.
Okay, so we're gonna bring these together and we're gonna saute them. Such a great explanation behind these beautiful ingredients. As you can hear them pop. What I don't want to do is overcook them, so I'm just going to give it a little heat where it still has some wonderful flavor. I don't want to season it. I just want it to speak for itself. It's browned really quick. This is Bison tallow I'm cooking these beautiful onions in. I'm going to bring these together because I'm going to transfer them to our plate. We have always had a connection with bison, and what I was taught growing up was that buffalo once in the 1800s 40 million roamed the west of the Mississippi. By 1990 there was I heard only 39 in 1990 that roamed the plains. There were eradication of the bison itself was an attack on indigenous people. And so, it's a very sad story about how they suffered, just like how we suffered. But, we're trying to reclaim so many things from the natural world into restoration through trauma recovery, addictions and other things. We're making a lot of strides in popular culture. We're setting a lot of examples on traditions that were never lost to begin with. Our voices were always strong and will continue to be strong for the next generation. Children are watching. So I didn't want to spread out these medallions individually and sear them because I don't want to cook the flesh internally. I just want to give it a little crust on the outside. So as I'm pressing this down with my hand, I have gloves that are protecting myself from the oil itself, but I want to give that little char before I flash it with a little bit of the stock. And if you're working with flame, you want to make sure to take the pan off of the flame before you put the stock on the tongue. The sound of that reminds me of Inipi ceremonies, sweat lodges. You know, when we pour water on the stones, you know, those are our ancestors. And so we want to honor those that came before us. And through the steam, you know, it's considered in Lakota tradition that it's the breath of our grandfathers. It's the breath of our ancestors kind of talking to us through the stones, giving us wisdom, giving us hope, giving us a new direction on how to heal. While that is doing its thing, I turned off the heat and it's still cooking. But what I want to do right now is to start the plates. And for this, it's more of a communal dish. So, you know, I'm going to try to lay in a lot of the beans. Okay, now I'm going to bring in the wild rice. To me, this represents land mass. The wild rice reminds me of a backyard, you know, or another area where you can sit and look at life. The parsley here represents, you know, foliage that's around the home, around the setting. We also have this beautiful puree to really be part of the sunshine of this dish. I'm going to bring the bison. Charred on the bottom. I want that smokiness. Before I add the gravy, I want to throw in a little bit of the sauce, stock. I have some wild blueberries that I'd like to be part of this assembly. Seems like this is a community effort. Blueberries represent all the beautiful people that are part of this journey. To me, it's the top of their heads if you were an eagle looking down, you know? I know I'm going crazy, but you know, you never know who's invited and who isn't. So I'm just highlighting a lot of people in attendance. Blueberries reflect that journey. I wanted to bring into the fold some of the fir tips that was foraged for this dish. I'd like to say thank you to the staff at Indigenous Food Lab for foraging these beautiful like fir tips that are in season right now. And of course, these beautiful wild onions that Luke Black Elk brought. And to accent that with, you know, some beautiful color to celebrate Leonard's arrival home. I hope more gifts to come to a man who has spent his whole life in isolation. I feel like this is a beautiful way to honor his name and also put a lot of prayers into his family. I'd like to thank Leonard Peltier, my friend who invited me on this journey. to support and feed her father as well as her mother. I feel like, this is a beautiful bouquet, a beautiful basket that we can all be proud of. And right before I leave, we're gonna taste this beautiful meal with Luke Black Elk. As we're tasting this bison tongue, some thoughts come to mind. Let's taste it first, and then I'll ask a question, because I have this one lingering question I've been wanting to ask you. I'm gonna take a big piece. That char on the bottom.
Amazing. So what I find really amazing about this is a complete meal. Everything you need here. So when you have the wild rice, the squash, and the beans together, that creates complete nutrients, right?
Yes.
And then you have the added protein on the side.
Right.
This is such a succulent, tender, flavorful, and nutrient piece of meat. This is what we would have served to the old people, right?
Yeah. Well, that's another question I wanted to ask, is that, how do you identify this specific dish? Is it ceremony? Would it be more of a gathering like we have with powwows? This is a dish that is definitely for the community, but what kind of community are we talking? Or is it just for individual families?
I think at that time, for my people at least, we were all one family, right?
Sure.
And so my band of Lakota is actually the Tazipcho band, which means that we don't mark our arrows, because when we hunted, everything was in common. And so this would just, like you said, it would be a dish for ceremony, of course, if there was a special occasion. But, I think that in today's modern society, we really lose the ceremony of food, right? And the medicine that's behind this. This is medicine. It's not just gonna give me nutrients for my body, but this is feeding me spiritually. This is feeding me emotionally.
It really is. I feel so connected to it, even through hearing what you're having to say. It really makes me feel complete, So thank you so much for being part of this journey with me and contributing also the work of the basket as well as the onions that you foraged. I'm Ramon Shiloh, and a lot of the work that I like to do is having food to heal. And so this is definitely an energy-driven experience, You can follow me on all social media platforms. I want to thank Indigenous Food Lab for having me here. Thank you, Luke Black Elk, for being part of this journey. If you enjoyed this video, check us out on all media outlets with Indigenous Food Lab on our YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere you can find us. Have a great day.